Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Juniper Coast, Episode 3. I'm Phamily, and welcome to the family. Man, the feedback I have been receiving from you all seems to really be good. I again can't thank you enough for the positivity that you all have been bringing and how you all have been enjoying this series so far. Well, today is probably going to be a little bit of a longer episode. Not by too much, but there are a few small surprises that are going to be in this episode. First and foremost, though, in the last episode, you might have noticed I only put in one tram line. So I wanted to make sure we covered the bases, have the tram stops in front of the university and the downtown section and whatnot, make it a little bit easier for people to go to and from work. So I went ahead, I put in that line, so now we've got trams actually going from stop to stop. I also went ahead and renamed the number 1 line. Now that we actually have different districts and things popping up, they will actually rename the lines to actually be what's happening. So line 2 is now, I believe, downtown to Balos City or whatever. And then you've got the number 1 line, which is Balos City local. I also wanted to get a little bit of low density in. Not every city is nothing but apartments. So I wanted to get a little bit of low density in this city. Get a few houses going, kind of have it be like the old historical downtown part of Balos City. It's not going to be perfect. It's just sort of a piecemeal for the moment. You've got a bunch of the more historical houses that are going to be in that neck of the woods over there. I don't know how I'm going to deal with noise in that section, but I decided to leave it at that. Now what I'm popping in right now is sort of a spider-like junction, I think is what it's called, or I forget what the asset's called, but it's basically an underground open air multiple platform station, underground tunnel service thing. It's a mouthful, but it's a bunch of connections for metro and for light rail and things like that. So we're gonna use that to connect to some of the more suburbs parts of the city and use that as sort of the central hub point. We will be able to put in a few other locations, hopefully in the near future, that we'll actually be able to connect up, which will be great. Will be fantastic. Also wanted to add in a little bit of industry. We're starting to get a bigger population now. We're almost at 20,000. In fact, I think we're crossing it right as I speak the voiceover. That is good timing. We just crossed 20,000. And so I wanted to make sure we had enough jobs for everybody. Also, kind of still working on this whole traffic issue. We have still some backups and needing to have some traffic flow going, so I set up that main road as a priority road to allow traffic to just continue to flow. And our traffic's doing well. I don't know if it'll be quick enough for you to see or not in the time-lapse here, but our traffic actually is right around 79, which is really, really good. So we like to keep it right around 80. So we'll try to keep the traffic in relative ease throughout this whole sort of building process. Now, as you've been seeing, I've been putting in a few parking garages here and there. I feel like parking garages need to be placed in order for them to really be to really make the city feel more natural. Obviously, people aren't going to park on the street everywhere. So I decided to put in a little bit of parking. Now I've got these parking lot assets as well. They're parking lot roads, which really make it feel like a parking lot. And I can actually put in the individual parking spots, and cars will use them. You'll see I did some adjustments there, and cars showed up. Now, they won't always show up when I do parking lot roads, but in this instance they did, and cars will come in and actually start using the parking lot there, which is great. And it feels natural, you know, it's right in the middle of a university campus. It's a place where car parking would be. I wanted the university to level up just a little bit, try to increase that attractiveness a bit, so I went ahead and issued that research grant that you saw there and started filling in a few more spaces to make this city really feel complete. We're actually getting pretty darn close to filling out the remainder of the grid. I also wanted to make sure there was a little bit of a buffer between the industry and the residential. Now, obviously, some cities it's not that much of a buffer. It's pretty cut and dry. It might be a highway, and that's about the only connection you get. In this city, it's going to be a little line of trees. It's just going to be a little line of trees to protect from that, which will change at a later time. And you can see the academic report. A few of those will pop up from here and there. Now for something that I've been sort of obsessed with in city skylines as of late. We're putting in our metropolitan airport. Now, I've got a really cheesy name for this airport. It's Juniper Coast International Airport, and I don't really name it. Obviously, it pops up as Applegate Airfield when I first start filling in the airport area. However, that being said, that doesn't mean we can't rename it something different. I was going to start renaming it, but I decided to rename it later. If you have better name suggestions, please, 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 I'm going to keep asking pretty much every single episode. If you have naming suggestions, please, I would love to hear those naming suggestions. Now, I wanted to have sort of a 2 runways setup for the airfield here, and I didn't want them to be parallel. I wanted them to cross. Now, normally in vanilla city skylines, you can't do this, but I have Anarchy, and it works. It allows for that to happen, and that feels a little bit more natural, to me anyway, to have sort of this cross runway look. So I wanted to make sure those runways were connected, and that there's a way to get to each end from each end. I think planes would also use the runways to taxi as well if they're going to a certain runway, but we don't need to really worry about that at this moment. Now, you'll see here that I have some issues. For some reason, the concourse didn't want to work, and I spent a good amount of time trying to figure out what the issue was. But the concourse didn't want to connect up to like extend it out and whatnot, and I just wanted to have one concourse area. I didn't want to make this a huge international airport, so I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it small. I'll work on other things right now. So I decided to just sort of finagle with things. Now, you saw I have a custom workshop asset there. I believe that's Hong Kong's airport's tower. And I thought that I could just put it right there. But while I'm adjusting it, I'm reading the asset description, and apparently people can actually work at that building. So later on, you'll see I actually find a place for it that seems to work out okay. So I just end up doing that. And here I'm going to start working on the road network. I want to kind of have the cargo airport and the passenger airport right next to each other, because obviously we could have a cargo airport separate and we could have an international airport, you know, for passengers separate. But to me, it just felt better to have all of it in one spot. And this is also going to be a common theme, is the roundabout being a problem. And now the roundabout's not going to be perfect. I'm going to tell you that ahead of time. There were 5 points on there, so I couldn't brace the roundabout perfectly, and it was just really finicky. So I decided against it. I just threw up my hands, and I was like, if it moves, it moves. So I'll let that be on your conscience for the rest of eternity. But that being said, I decided to then kind of have it be sort of an oddball roundabout. It's only going to have 3 connections. instead of like a typical 4 or whatnot. Why did I do it this way? Well, I wanted to sort of figure out if I could do something decorative in the middle. I didn't figure it out during the episode, during the recording. So if you have any suggestions after the very, very end, please save them for the end, because I do a ton of decorating in this airport area. Please, 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 if you have any additional suggestions, please let me know. Now for the fun part. I had to figure out how to connect this thing up to the road network. Obviously, I didn't know how I was going to have the concourse set up, so I didn't really know if any of this was actually going to work. So I decided to do some small minor adjustments just to sort of make the roads feel naturally occurring and blending in. And those, it might look really, really weird right now, but by the end of the episode, it'll actually look a little bit better. Now, any airport needs parking, and I was trying to figure out where short-term, long-term, economy, all those different things, and then I just remembered the parking garages that I've been doing. I kind of went on a little parking garage binge there, so I put a whole bunch of parking garages down, just sort of to make do with that. And I thought what would be even better is to have sort of an airport underground metro, sort of connecting the main terminal to the long-term parking or the economy parking. I thought that would be great, because then they could just have a little shuttle going back and forth between the airport and the parking garage, so that all the people don't have to worry. Apologies about the creaking. That was my chair creaking in the background there. But I was thinking that would be a perfect opportunity to put that in, because a lot of airports have some sort of transport to and from their further parking, so from the economy parking, and that just made sense to me. Here I'm trying to figure out how the road layout is going to work on the inside. I know there needs to be some sort of loop, and I just put it in right there. I've got some good timing. But usually a lot of airports have some sort of loop to and from the main airport, so if you need to turn around, you can. So I went ahead and I put in some of the short-term parking right there, closer to the concourse. Obviously, we're not going to have any public transportation to and from there. I'm sure the people can walk, and that'll be just fine. So here I'm using node controller, and you saw that a couple episodes ago, and using like the node controller and the draw line tool to try to figure out, this was difficult. I was trying to figure out how to condense down 6 lanes of traffic into a single 2 roads, one with 2 lanes and one with 3. But these 2 3-lane roads coming from the airport both need to be connected in all directions. So basically we need to have a left turn from both sides going onto the turnaround, and then the rest of the lanes need to go straight on. So it was a mess to try to figure out the lines of this, and I think I just ended up leaving the dotted lines pretty much scattered everywhere, which honestly, as odd as it sounds, pretty much feels like every single airport exit I have seen. It's just a mess of lines, and you're just kind of driving on pavement. You're not really paying attention to the lines, you're just making sure you're not hitting anybody else. But this is a video game, and trying to make it as realistic as possible, those cars that are actually on the road are going to try to stick to their lanes, so I wanted to still try to make it feel like they're following the lines. Didn't quite work out the way I hoped, but it did end up looking okay at the end. You can tell I am spending a long time trying to finagle with this. Does it work out at the end? I'd say it does. You can see the mess there. I think I ended up giving up at that point, trying to adjust it. And then here I remembered there's the flat tool that allows the lines to be flat. This side was much easier. This side was the 2 and 3 into 3 and 3, and thankfully this one was very straightforward because I didn't have to have the main road try to turn onto that side street. So thankfully we got the flow of traffic sort of situated in that regard. So now I decided to start putting down some amenities. We got the Pacific Northwest Fire Station. That's the name of the asset that I put down, and then the police station across the street there. I found the asset on the Steam Workshop for the Pacific Northwest, and that fire station looks almost exactly like a fire station that was near my house growing up. So I thought that was a perfect inclusion to our Pacific Northwest build. Now, obviously, I decided to drop in the cargo airport. We're getting to the point where I wanted to see what sort of space I had to work with. I'm already very, very close to the train line and the highway, and I didn't want to have to destroy anything in order to make everything fit. I wanted it to feel like it was already kind of scrunched as is. Now, this isn't a pretty road layout at all. Not at all what I had envisioned. But in the end, for some reason, it kind of works. It kind of works. And it was mostly there just to sort of help with traffic with the trucks, because there's going to be a lot of trucks coming here once this airport, this cargo airport, gets up and running. So now I decide to expand the airport area. I want to make use of pretty much every single part of this cargo airport. And in doing so, I think I kind of crammed myself a little bit. You can see how close I got there to the train line with these cargo plane, whatever they're called, hangars, or you can correct me in the comments, but these stations, I will call them, for the planes. I'm sure that's going to make a lot of aviation enthusiasts cringe. But I'm blanking out right now, so be it. I wanted the taxiways to feel really natural as well, and so I unfortunately had to squeeze in these taxiways pretty close, as you can see right there, in order for it to get close enough to the train line. I might end up adjusting that train line later, but for now, this is what it's going to look like. Certainly is not my best line of work, but it definitely feels... It feels cleaner than I expected it to. Now, something odd that I decided to do that I don't really like doing with the DLC airports is I wanted to connect up the main terminal and the cargo terminal into one giant airport. So it's not like a cargo airport and an international airport. It is both of them together. This was another stump that I had, was figuring out how I needed the plane layout to be. Yeah, the layout of the taxiways was not fun, at least on this part, because of how I had to squeeze everything in, and they're all one direction. I wish there were multiple direction taxiways, but I understand why they're only single direction. So for now, this is sort of how I have things laid out, and now to make it look so much better, so I have Surface Painter. That's what this is, a Surface Painter, and it just cleans it up so nice, and it already looks, I'm sure, a million times better for everyone, I'm sure. We'll have lots of other additions to the fold, if you will. I'll go back and add a few tiny things, and at this point, for some reason, it wanted to start working again, so we have... Well, I started working on the concourse at this point. But yeah, at a later time, I'm going to be working on getting the airport kind of finalized. Today, I just kind of wanted to get it out operational and looking right, is kind of what I wanted to do. So that's what I ended up doing, is I started getting this airport connected. So we've got a little small aircraft side, and then we're going to have medium and large aircraft on the other. I didn't want to go overboard. Like, I probably could have put a ton more into this airport and if just, went hog wild. But I didn't. I just couldn't bring myself to make it super massive. We already have quite a few hangars. That's what it is. No, it's not hangars. It's not hangars. I'll figure out the name eventually. But we already have quite a few of these little gates. Gates! Gates. That's what it is. You saw my brain explode in real time there. But, yeah, we have a lot of these gates that were down. You can actually see it. We got the Concorde there on the left in one of the bigger plane hangars. That's one of the assets that I found, and a few of the other small ones. But we have quite a few of these gates down in here already. I didn't want to go too overboard. I wanted this to feel more regional than an international, especially with the cargo airport right there already. It just felt kind of sort of overboard if I went too much further than that. So this was another pain that I had. Yeah, enjoy that. We're just gonna ignore it for now. It'll work itself out. It'll work itself out as we use Surface Painter. But that is the unfortunate part of this particular build, is that the taxiways were a pain. They didn't want to cooperate on some occasions, and so it kind of left a little bit to be desired in certain aspects. I also wanted to get down a few airport hotels. We got the luxurious one kind of there, and then the budget one near the economy lot. I also started noticing that we were running a little bit low on our sewage. So in order to do that, I double-checked my policies and cranked them back up. Then, yeah. That's just me checking to make sure I had enough sewage and water to go around. Yeah, you can get away with a lot just by cranking up the budget. You won't have to worry about increasing the amount of amenities out and about. Especially if you haven't increased the size of your city necessarily. It's a good way to make sure you have enough to go around. And then there's just me putting in the helicopter, police, and medical helicopter depots, however you want to pronounce it. And of course using more Surface Painter to make it look just a hair nicer. I was really tempted to leave that triangle in place, but decided against it simply because it just felt better to have it all filled in. You can see, like, it'll fill itself in more and more and more and more and more as we go along. So this is where I started trying to figure out where I was going to put the tower. First things first, though, I wanted to smooth out what we already had. When you do an airport area, for those of you unaware, I can't remember if I said this at the beginning or not, but when you do an airport area in the DLC, it will automatically flatten the land for the airport so that it's on a flat land. You don't have to worry about building a runway on a sloped terrain. However, that does leave little cliff ledges at the end of your airport areas. And so I just like smoothing it out when everything's said and done, because then it makes the airport look like it's naturally supposed to be there. And I think it did a very good job of doing that. And then, of course, we got our little tower there to make sure it looked okay. Now, this is something I was unsure of. We have these stations, metro, train, and bus stations, that can attach directly to the terminal. Now, I didn't really want to do that, but if you think we should, please let me know in the comments. I will do what I can to put that in so that we have we have a way to get to the terminal using our mass transit. Now I'm putting in a few hangars, trying to make it feel like it should be part of an airport. A little bit of fueling stations and planes here and there. Make it feel more active. Obviously, these aren't the only things we can do. In this build, I didn't do anything when it came to making the terminal look any better. I didn't put any, I believe they're, I forget the name. I'm forgetting a lot of names recently. But like the clubs, the airline clubs, first class lounges, if you will. I didn't put any of those in the terminal. I didn't put any of the towers on the terminal. But what I did do is I put in a few of these planes in the hangars, trying to make the hangars look more like they're being used. And I liked putting the planes kind of out in the terminal areas as well. Well, the taxiway areas. I'm getting tripped up over myself. I've been recording for a while, so I apologize. But it just felt like natural, and this is very basic airport start. There's going to be a lot of open spots, but I really liked how it turned out. I was tempted to fill in that area back there. A couple of different areas that I was tempted to fill in. If you think they should be filled in, let me know. Another thing I didn't do is I didn't put a perimeter fence around the airport. I didn't do that at all. There I am naming the airport. Again, if you come up with a better name, let me know. I didn't come up with a perimeter fence to put around, which I will probably try to get to the next episode. So remind me in the comments, yell at me if I don't. And then just wanted to decorate the entrance a little bit. Nothing too fancy. I don't want to go too hog wild. I say as I'm getting ready to put a bunch of trees in here. But I didn't want to go too wild with the decorations until we really knew what it was going to look like. So right now, I just sort of did a basic little entryway. Make it look and feel natural. I found this rhododendron asset while I was scrolling through, and I was like, you know what, this is perfect. It's not like anything else we've got right now. So I used it to sort of decorate the area, kind of fill in a few empty spots, make it feel a little bit more alive. I couldn't figure out anything to really put in this particular spot either. I was going to try to put in a plaza. I think I ended up just filling it in with more commercial. But if you have any suggestions for the airport, please do let me know. I would love to hear more suggestions for the airport. Even if, for whatever reason, I don't end up doing anything like that you suggest, I'll probably end up using it elsewhere. So right now, I decided to put in a specialized commercial zone out there at the airport so that we could have local produce, kind of have more local shops. That feels a little bit better than having skyscrapers next to the airport. And we started having fire issues. I was trying to get the helicopters out over that direction. But the amount of trees started making it a little bit of an issue. So I had to end up putting fire towers in various different places. I also put a couple of small offices over by the airport. This is kind of... We're starting to get towards the end of the episode here. We still got a little bit of the episode left, but you'll notice those fire issues pretty much for the rest of this. Now, I noticed while I was working on the airport, there was people complaining about entertainment. We didn't have enough entertainment, so I was starting to try to figure out what we could do for entertainment. I have that great asset of the Toronto Oriental Tower, I believe is what it is. I have that asset that I would love to have close to downtown. And then here I'm using the university trick again from before, because what we end up putting over here, which completely undoes the little wave of trees we have there, is we end up putting sports in. So we've got a little baseball stadium we put in on this end, and then we end up eventually putting in a basketball court on the other side. We make a little sports complex there, and then for those of you wondering, right next to the baseball field, we've got sort of a winter market. So it's supposed to be like a little farmer's market, if you will. Year-round. They have like sometimes those year-round Christmas trees or whatever. So we got basketball and we've got baseball for our university now, away from the university campus. Now, I guess good news, bad news. Good news is it provides the entertainment. Bad news is it's a lot of noise. We start having a couple of noise issues because we can't put the barrier of trees on this side, and you can see me struggling to try to put those trees in there, and I end up destroying an entire row of homes to try to provide some of that. Now for the baseball diamond, I decided to just suck it up, and I was like, if a home run ball hits into one of them apartments, that's on them. I'm thinking Camden Yards with the brick wall right next to the field there. You can hit a home run ball right onto right in there. But and then I was thinking, of course, we need parking for these two massive complexes that draw a lot of crowds. So there's probably going to be a lot of traffic here in the future, a lot of people going to the games. So for now, thankfully, we've got our tram network, which stops right next to each one. And then we've got a nice, massive amount of parking that I'm going to be working on pretty much for the rest of this episode. Now, for those of you who are like, oh, rest of the episode, I can leave. No, we actually something really special. So normally we end the episode only with a single little cinematic shot. We actually have quite a few cinematic shots this time around of our city. Now that it's starting to grow, the cinematic shots are actually going to be a lot nicer, a lot longer, because we can actually take in more of the city instead of just having sort of the basic start. But I really like how everything has sort of filled in. Like, it's the main part of Balos City is already getting close to being done. Obviously, we're nowhere near done with the city as a whole, but like sort of the downtown hustle bustle section, we're starting to get to the end of it already. 3 episodes in, and it already starting to feel pretty darn complete. Probably gonna end up doing a few more episodes here, probably 2 or 3 more episodes in Balos City before we start moving on to the rest of the map. Just so that we get sort of the main city looking exactly the way we want. There's those fire issues. Well, that will actually do it for this episode. We are going to be hopping out of this, and we're going to be hopping into the cinematics. I hope you enjoy the cinematics. Thank you again so much for watching. I'm going to let these run. You're all the best. I really, again, appreciate all the love and support that this series has been receiving. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely, lovely evening.